Elon Musk stays in his own hotel, falls asleep when he hears two employees whispering behind him. Elon Musk stood on the rooftop of his latest venture, a dazzling architectural marvel that pierced the Los Angeles skyline. The Visionaire, his state-of-the-art hotel, was not just a structure, it was a testament to human ingenuity. With its gravity-defying design, powered entirely by renewable energy, and equipped with the most advanced AI systems ever conceived, it was the embodiment of Musk's futuristic dreams. The opening night had been a spectacle. Celebrities, tech moguls, journalists, and investors had gathered to witness the unveiling. Journalists called it the crown jewel of the Musk empire, while social media buzzed with glimpses of its ethereal interiors, walls made of intelligent glass that changed patterns based on moods. Robotic concierges fluent in over 50 languages, and suites that redefined the boundaries of luxury. Elon, though visibly proud, seemed detached. He had never been one to bask in the limelight for long. The applause echoed around him, but his mind raced to the next horizon, the next impossibility to conquer. After thanking the guests with his signature blend of humility and wit, he quietly retreated from the crowd, slipping into an exclusive penthouse suite reserved for him. The penthouse was a reflection of his minimalist philosophy, sleek, functional, and devoid of unnecessary opulence. Its centerpiece was a massive glass wall that offered an uninterrupted view of the city below, glowing like a galaxy of artificial stars. For once, Elon allowed himself a moment to breathe. He had been on an unrelenting journey for years, and the toll was visible: faint shadows under his eyes, a posture that bore the weight of endless responsibilities, and a mind that never truly rested. As he sank into the ergonomic armchair by the window, his gaze softened. The world outside seemed distant, almost unreal, compared to the whirlwind inside his head. He chuckled at the irony. He had built a hotel designed for unparalleled comfort, yet he rarely afforded himself the luxury of sleep. A gentle knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. It was one of the hotel staff delivering a special gift, a bottle of aged whiskey from a distillery in Scotland, a congratulatory token from a longtime business partner. Musk accepted it with a polite nod, poured himself a glass, and reclined in the armchair. The amber liquid warmed his throat as he stared at the shimmering skyline, his thoughts beginning to blur into dreams. The suite's advanced AI dimmed the lights automatically, sensing his weariness. The room exuded tranquility, but even in this sanctuary, Elon's mind was restless. He drifted into a light sleep, the hum of the city below lulling him into a rare moment of respite. Then came the whispering. The sound was faint at first, a murmur, like the rustle of wind through leaves. Elon stirred, his senses sharpening instantly. Years of balancing impossible projects and navigating high-stakes environments had honed his ability to wake fully alert. His eyes opened to the dim glow of the room's AI interface, gently projecting the time onto the glass wall, 2:14 a.m. He remained still, listening intently. The whispers were coming from the hallway just outside his suite. At first, they seemed indistinct, but as he focused, fragments of the conversation began to piece together. "I'm telling you, he's different. The way he thinks. It's like he's not even from here." "Yeah, but have you ever wondered how he does it? I mean, the guy's juggling rockets, cars, AI, tunnels, and now this place. It's not normal." Elon's curiosity was piqued. Over the years, he had grown accustomed to people analyzing, praising, or criticizing him, often without understanding the complexity of his life. But there was something in their tone, a mixture of awe and skepticism, that made him linger, silently eavesdropping. "Do you think he ever just stops?" one voice continued, softer now. "Like, Does he ever just sit down and wonder if it's all worth it? I doubt it. People like him don't stop. They can't. It's like they're running on some kind of internal engine the rest of us don't have. Elon's lips curled into a faint smile. The analogy amused him, an internal engine. He often joked about being part machine, given the pace he maintained, but the truth was far more human. He knew what drove him, an insatiable desire to push the boundaries of possibility. And yet, their words struck a chord. Had he ever truly stopped to reflect? The whispering grew quieter, but the snippets he caught next made his heart beat just a little faster. Did you hear about that one time he slept on the factory floor? He said it was to motivate the workers, but come on, who does that? It's like he's trying to prove something to himself. That's what makes him brilliant, though. He doesn't just talk, he does. But don't you wonder? What's he running from? The last question hung in the air, cutting through the stillness of the night. Elon sat up in his chair, the faint lines of a frown forming on his face. It wasn't an unfamiliar question. He'd heard variations of it from journalists, critics, and even close friends over the years. But hearing it in this quiet, almost reverent tone was different. His mind replayed the countless moments he had pushed beyond exhaustion. Sleeping in Tesla factories during production crunches, staying up for days to troubleshoot SpaceX launches, fielding endless meetings, and drafting visions for projects that seemed like science fiction. He often justified it as a necessity, a responsibility to humanity's future. But what if they were right? Elon stood and moved toward the door, barefoot on the sleek, temperature-controlled floor. The whispers continued, softer now, as though the speakers sensed they were being overheard. I mean, don't get me wrong, one of them added, he's a genius, but it's lonely at the top, isn't it? He paused just behind the door, his hand hovering over the biometric lock. The question lingered in his mind. Loneliness. It was a word he rarely allowed himself to entertain, yet it had a way of creeping in during the quiet moments, those rare pockets of stillness when the noise of innovation subsided. Elon hesitated, torn between opening the door and confronting the voices or retreating to his thoughts. He ultimately turned back, walking to the glass wall that framed the cityscape. The employee's conversation replayed in his mind, each word a mirror reflecting parts of himself he rarely examined. The city below continued its restless hum, and for the first time in a long while, Elon felt an unfamiliar pull, not toward the future, but toward the present. Toward understanding the man behind the empire. The night was far from over, and in its silence, he sensed the beginning of something profound. The whispers faded into the distance, leaving behind an echo that resonated deep within Elon's thoughts. He stood before the expansive glass wall, the city below still alive with its midnight rhythms. Skyscrapers glowed like sentinels of ambition, their lights flickering in harmony with the ceaseless pulse of life. Elon's reflection stared back at him, superimposed over the glittering metropolis. For a moment, he didn't see the innovator, the billionaire, or the man hailed as a pioneer of the future. Instead, he saw a tired soul, a man who had given so much of himself to the world that the boundaries between his identity and his vision had blurred. He took another sip of the whiskey, the liquid warming him against the cool ambience of the penthouse. The employee's words lingered. What's he running from? It was a question that had chased him for years, always lurking in the recesses of his mind, though he rarely gave it space to grow. The truth was, Elon had always been running from mediocrity, from the fear of irrelevance. From the haunting possibility that he might not fulfill the potential he had envisioned for himself. But more than anything, he was running toward something, a future so vivid in his imagination that it felt more real than the present. A world where humanity transcended its limitations, where the stars weren't distant dreams but reachable destinations, and where Earth thrived in harmony with technology. He glanced at a digital panel embedded in the wall. With a simple touch, it displayed a holographic projection of the solar system, with Mars highlighted in crimson. He had spent years championing humanity's journey to the red planet, pouring resources and energy into making it a second home. But why? Why had he latched onto Mars with such fervor? As the hologram rotated slowly, he thought back to his childhood. Growing up in South Africa, he often felt like an outsider, an odd kid obsessed with books, computers, and science fiction. He remembered the nights he spent gazing at the stars, imagining a world where anything was possible. The universe had seemed infinite back then, full of promise and mystery. Perhaps Mars wasn't just about colonization or survival. Perhaps it was his way of reaching back to that boy who dreamed of endless possibilities. But the boy who dreamed had grown into a man who worked tirelessly, often at the cost of personal connections. The sacrifices were countless missed family moments, strained relationships, and the gnawing feeling that no matter how much he achieved, it would never be enough. He walked back to the armchair and sank into it, his mind a whirlwind of thoughts. The AI system, sensing his unease, softly adjusted the room's lighting to a calming hue of blue. He closed his eyes, trying to sift through the noise in his head. The employee's conversation had touched on loneliness, and it was a sentiment he couldn't deny. In the pursuit of greatness, he had often found himself isolated, surrounded by people but rarely understood. It wasn't that he resented the solitude sometimes, it was a necessity, but there were moments when he wondered what it would be like to simply stop, to let someone in, to share the weight of his dreams. Yet, stopping was never an option. The world expected too much, and he expected even more from himself. Every decision he made, every project he launched, felt like a piece of a much larger puzzle, a puzzle that, once complete, would redefine humanity's place in the universe. But the whispers had planted a seed of doubt. Was it worth it if the journey came at the cost of his own peace? He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, and stared at the floor. The city's hum seemed distant now, replaced by the quiet rhythm of his thoughts. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to dwell not on the future but on the present. What had he missed in his relentless pursuit of progress? What moments, what connections, had he let slip through his fingers? The glass wall reflected his pensive expression, and in it, he saw not just the visionary the world revered but also the man he had almost forgotten, the man behind the curtain of innovation, searching for meaning beyond the grandeur of his accomplishments. As the night deepened, the weight of introspection settled over him, heavy but oddly liberating. He realized that while he had been running toward a brighter future, he had neglected the importance of pausing to appreciate the present. The voices outside had quieted, but their impact lingered. In the stillness of the penthouse, Elon felt a rare and profound sense of vulnerability. The first light of dawn began to seep through the glass wall, casting a pale golden glow over the suite. Elon hadn't slept, but he didn't feel tired. Instead, he felt strangely grounded, as though the night's reflections had unearthed a part of him that had been buried beneath years of relentless ambition. He rose from the armchair and approached the holographic projection of the solar system still suspended in the air. With a swipe of his hand, he minimized it, returning the room to its minimalist elegance. The vastness of the universe had always been his playground, but for the first time, he found himself focusing inward rather than outward. The question echoed in his mind once more: what's he running from? Perhaps he wasn't running from anything but rather toward something that had always been just out of reach: balance. Balance between innovation and humanity, between his boundless dreams and the simple joys of existence. Elon walked to the door of his suite, opening it to the silent corridor. The hotel, his latest masterpiece, was still and serene. He imagined the employees who had spoken in hushed tones the night before. He didn't know their names or roles, but their words had touched him more deeply than they could have imagined. Deciding to embrace the moment, he stepped into the hallway barefoot, his steps quiet against the polished floor. He wandered through the empty spaces of the visionaire, observing the details he had once agonized over during the design phase. Every corner of the hotel was a reflection of his ethos: sleek, innovative, and forward-thinking. But now, he saw it as something more, a symbol of human effort, collaboration, and the beauty of shared vision. As he passed through the atrium, he encountered a night shift janitor wiping down one of the sleek glass panels. The janitor looked up, startled, and quickly straightened. "Mr. Musk," he exclaimed, almost dropping his cleaning cloth. Elon smiled warmly. "Good morning. Don't mind me. Just taking a walk." The janitor nodded, still visibly nervous. Elon paused, then added, "You know, I spent last night listening to the city and thinking about what we're building here. It's easy to focus on the big picture and forget about the people who make it possible. You're part of this vision too, and I appreciate what you do." The janitor's face lit up with a mix of surprise and gratitude. "Thank you, sir, that means a lot." Elon continued his walk, his mind clearer than it had been in years. He made his way to the rooftop, where the first rays of sunlight kissed the edge of the horizon. The city below began to stir, its hum growing louder as the world awoke to a new day. Standing there, he thought of the journey ahead: not just to Mars, not just to new technological heights, but to a deeper understanding of what it meant to live a life of purpose. The world would always demand more of him, and he would always rise to the challenge. But now, he resolved to do so with a greater awareness of balance, of presence, and of the people who walked beside him, whether near or far. As the sun rose higher, Elon Musk felt a rare sense of peace. The whispers of the night before no longer haunted him; instead, they had become a quiet reminder of his humanity. He turned to leave the rooftop, his steps steady and sure. The day awaited him, full of possibilities, challenges, and the promise of progress, not just for the world, but for himself. And for the first time in a long time, he was ready to face it all.